Tonight, on Dark Hours, we're diving into the long stretches of asphalt where headlights die and the only voice you hear is your own. Real accounts from truckers who've seen things you won't find on any map. Before we begin, make sure you're buckled in. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Tell us where you're listening from and what time of night it is right now. I've been a trucker for a little over 20 years now. I've seen everything from dust storms that black out the sun to tourists trying to take selfies in the middle of a freeway lane. But what happened between Bluff and Monticello still plays back in my head like a bad dash cam loop. My name's Daniel Ortega. Most folks on the CB call me Redline. I haul mostly between Texas and Utah, Salt Lake to El Paso. Nothing glamorous, just freight, fuel stops, and coffee that tastes like burnt engine oil. That night, I'd left Salt Lake around 7 p.m. The sky was clear. The forecast said no wind, no closures. Everything about it should have been routine. Somewhere after midnight, I crossed into that long, empty stretch past Blanding. Nothing but black desert and my own reflection in the glass. I remember it because I had just taken a sip of cold coffee from my thermos and checked the clock. 12:38. The odometer read 512,000 miles even. One of those little nothings you remember for no reason at all. Then I saw the cones. Brand new orange ones, still clean. No dust. Lined across the right lane like they'd just been dropped there. The first sign said, "Road work ahead in crisp paint." No warning on the app. No chatter on the CB. Just cones in the middle of nowhere. I told myself maybe the DOT was doing emergency patching. Happens sometimes. You'd think it'd show up on the alert feed, but I'd lost signal miles back. So I kept rolling, slow and steady. Then another sign appeared. Detour, County 14, with an arrow pointing left. Thing is, there's no County 14 out there. I know those roads like my own knuckles. US 191 runs clean through. No turnoffs that way except a service road that dead ends at a fence line. I slowed, scanning for work lights, and that's when I saw her. A flagger stood dead center between the cones. Floodlight behind her, wand glowing orange. No reflective vest, just one of those old yellow jackets with silver stripes. She never looked up, just waved the wand left, slow and steady, like she'd been doing it for hours. Behind her idled a white F-150 with a magnetic sign on the door that said, "Road Safe." Legit company. I've seen their rigs before. Only the logo was the old one. They changed it back in 2018, different font, green border. This one was the 2016 design, the one with the crooked A. I didn't think of that until later. The CB crackled once. A woman's voice, calm and clipped. Northbound. Follow the pilot car. Then silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. I checked my mirrors, 2 other trucks behind me, headlights spaced out, even. No plates I could make out. No company names. Just blank white trailers with reflective tape in the old pattern, the diagonal stripes they stopped using years ago. The F-150 pulled ahead, amber beacon spinning lazy. I fell in line. The radio popped again. Maintain 25. Do not pass the pilot. Her voice wavered, like a cheap recording playing too slow. Then, softly, "Good to have you with us, Redline." I froze. I hadn't said my handle, not once. I thumbed the mic. "Breaker 19. Who's this?" Nothing, just static, like someone breathing too close to the mic. The detour curved off the main highway, tires crunching over gravel that looked too clean to be old. On my left, rows of K-rail. On the right, nothing but black sage. No dust in my beams. None. Even the trucks ahead. No dust, no bounce. Like they were gliding. That smell hit next. Hot coolant. Creosote. Ozone. Like a thunderstorm that never shows. The voice again. Steady now. Left curve. Only the curve came 2 seconds before she said it, like she was describing something already recorded. Half buried in the ditch, my headlights caught a rusted sign. County 14, closed 2009. My stomach went cold. I eased the rig down to 10 miles an hour. Thought about flipping a U-turn, but those K-rails boxed me in, and the F-150 ahead kept flashing that lazy beacon like everything was fine. We rolled maybe another mile before the lights ahead bloomed bright. Halogens on tripods, humming generators. A big flat clearing opened up, lined with cones and barricades. The pilot car braked and stopped. Hazards blinking. The same flagger stepped out from nowhere, wand glowing again. Only this time she wasn't breathing. No vapor in the cold air. She motioned me toward a set of scales that weren't scales at all. Just a stained cattle guard laid over gravel. Two silhouettes stepped out from behind the light towers. Reflective vests, hard hats, hands down by their hips. I couldn't see guns, but I didn't need to. The CB hissed again. Engines off. Yeah, no. I dropped it into low and stomped the throttle. Cones went flying. The F-150 barely swerved as I tore past. The other trucks didn't move at all. Not a brake light, not a mirror flash. Like cardboard cutouts. My trailer slammed through a barricade, sparks lighting up the rails. For half a second, the floodlights behind me flickered, then died, one by one, like a row of candles snuffed out. Black, then asphalt again. Real road. Real paint lines. GPS blinked awake on the dash like nothing had happened. 12:51 a.m., signal strong, route line back on US 191. I was shaking so bad I nearly missed the next pull-off. I stopped at the Monticello station, the only 24-hour joint for 50 miles. The clerk looked half asleep. I asked if there'd been any construction north. She frowned, said DOT hadn't worked that stretch in years. Another driver sipping coffee overheard me. When I said, County 14, his face went pale. He told me not to joke about that road. Said it washed out back in 2009. Some truckers got jumped out there a couple years later by thieves pretending to be road crew. They caught two. The third vanished. I called Highway Patrol once my hands stopped shaking enough to dial. They confirmed it. County 14 was permanently closed, paved over in 2013. They sent a cruiser to check mile marker 223, where I said it happened. Next morning, an officer called me back, said they found nothing, no cones, no signs, just scuffed gravel and a broken pilot car paddle half buried in sage, weathered, old. A week later, bright daylight run near Blanding, sky clear, nothing strange. I checked my mirrors out of habit. 3 truck lengths behind me, a white F-150, amber beacon, old road-safe magnet, the crooked A, perfect pace. I blinked, looked again. Gone. Haven't taken a night detour since. Doesn't matter how good the money is or how tight the deadline. You see a sign for County 14 out there. Keep driving. There's nothing on that road anymore. Not since 2009. I've been running freight across the Midwest long enough to know when my head is playing tricks on me and when the road really is trying to tell me something. Name's Caleb, but most folks on Channel 19 know me as Hollow. Long story involving an axle hub and a pothole outside Topeka. I'm 36, run solo, and if I'm being honest, the cab of my Kenworth's been home more nights than my apartment in Independence this past year. You learn the tiny rituals that keep you sane. The way you fold the paper map under the visor even though your GPS hasn't failed you in 2 years. The way you tap the fuel gauge with a knuckle every 100 miles just to feel like you're in charge of the needle. The way you listen to the CB even when it's nothing but static, because sometimes the static is better than the silence. Old-timers have a saying about I-70 west of Junction City. Something about how electronics get a little squirrely around mile 77. I always chalked it up to folklore and bad alternators. You hear enough stories in truck stop diners and the weirdest ones start to sound like maintenance issues. Mid-December, cold front rolling out of Nebraska like a wall. I picked up a half-load of machine belts in St. Louis around 7:30 p.m., scanned the BOL, grabbed a styrofoam cup of coffee that tasted like last week, and pointed the nose toward Denver. My rig's a 2016 T680 with a mismatched dry van behind it because the company's idea of aesthetics is whatever's not in the shop. I had good rubber on the drives, wipers that didn't chatter, and a heater that came on heavy enough to fog the side windows if I forgot to crack the back vent. The sky was that low winter gray that swallows whatever moon there is. The app told me 2:43 a.m. Arrival. if I kept my foot light and the wind behaved. Radio chatter was thin after Kansas City. A couple of guys trading locations on state troopers. A cattle hauler arguing with himself about whether the subway in Salina still did breakfast at 3. The rhythm felt right. Tires humming, lines strobing, coffee cooling into something you drink out of habit. I passed into the part of Kansas where the exits get further apart and the land lies so flat it feels like you're sailing a black ocean. My dashboard clock clicked over to 11:41. The thermometer flirted with single digits, and the wind found seams in my jacket I hadn't noticed last season. Somewhere east of Hayes, the GPS blinked a recalculating hiccup like it lost a heartbeat, then settled down. Little things. You ignore them or you start seeing messages in every lane ripple. I eased the speed a touch under 70 and let the cab settle. That was when the first odd thing happened. I know the mile marker because I glanced at it once, then twice, to bake it into my head. Like that could make the road obey my memory later. 77. Green sign, reflective bite, snow rime around the edges. The beam of my headlights reached further than it should have in that cold air and painted the shoulder bright. A figure stood in the edge of that light, a woman. White parka that didn't belong to any brand I recognized, fur trim around the hood, head turned away from me, looking across at the eastbound lanes like someone standing at a window with the blinds closed. No car, no hazard flashers, no glow of a phone cradled under her chin. Just shoes planted exactly on the white line of the shoulder, as if she'd been set there. I've stopped before, and I've regretted it. And I've not stopped before, and I've regretted that too. You dial up state patrol. You hang your hat on the idea that the next four-wheeler behind you has room and time. I put my hand on the blinker, felt the truck lean as I thought about it, and kept moving. I told myself I'd grab the next exit and double back if the shoulder looked wide enough to park a van without getting clipped by a sleepy cattle rig. I told myself a lot of things in the space of 3 seconds. Her parka didn't so much as twitch in the wake of my trailer. She stayed at that same angle, as if nothing passed her at all. My mirror caught her for a heartbeat, a white shape falling away into the dark. I felt the animal part of my brain tighten, the part that knows when a storm's coming before the clouds show it. 10 minutes later, call it a dozen miles, the road bent shallow around a rise and my high beams brushed the shoulder again, same height of markers, same flat spread of ditch, same black fence line with frost sparkling along the top wire. The woman stood there. Same parka, same precise stance. The hair around the hood wasn't hair anymore, or I was far enough now that I couldn't be sure. It looked like something matted, damp, dark. I told myself it wasn't the same woman because that's what you tell yourself when the alternative is that the road is folding and unfolding behind you like a bad trick. CB hissed, popped, cleared its throat as if someone had keyed up and thought better of it. You follow headlights, not people. An old tanker hand out of Abilene told me once about deer, about moths, about all the dumb things that sprint into your lane just when you need them not to. I heard his voice in my head, and I didn't know whether he'd meant animals or something else. I reached for the coffee, found it cold and slick at the rim, and drank anyway. The fuel light didn't come on. I didn't need it to. I knew the level from the way the needle lagged when I took a grade and kissed the line again on the other side. Next fuel west was a Sinclair tucked tight under the highway, near Oakley. I could see the green dinosaur in my mind before the exit ramp even signed its existence. I took the off-ramp shallow, let the trailer line up with the pump islands, and shut my lights down to parking to give my eyes a rest. The lot was that particular shade of sleep that gas stations do after midnight. Sodium lamps the color of old teeth. A Coke machine with a backlight that made everything in it look like it had been dead longer than I've been driving. Inside, a kid in a Sinclair jacket held his phone at chin level like it was propping him up. He didn't look up when the door chime went off. He did when it went off again because I let it close and then open with my elbow the way you do when your hands are full. "You got diesel additive?" I asked because the cold was going to bite harder after Colby. He blinked, nodded at the end cap by the jerky. I grabbed 2 bottles, paid cash because my card reader hates small towns, and asked if they'd had anyone come in, a woman maybe, white parka, out by the highway. The kid's face did a thing like he was catching up to the part of the night he'd missed. He said the words you hear, and your brain refuses them first. "Highway's closed west," he said. "Wreck by 77. Troopers blocked it about an hour ago. Nobody passed that." He was just the right amount of apologetic to make me hate him. I said I'd just come through. He looked at me like he wanted to believe me because it would make the conversation end faster, and then he looked past me at the glass doors like maybe the highway would wander in and correct me. Back at the pump, my hands felt too big for the cap. Cold can do that. Sleep can do worse. I topped off, sloshed the additive in, clicked the cap twice like it owed me money, and swung up into the cab. The kind of quiet that isn't quiet waited there. Fluorescent humming overhead lights in the lot made a rectangle on my windshield. The glass made a second rectangle out of the first. I don't know why I reached up to adjust the center mirror. Habit, probably. Cargo check for a trailer I couldn't see. Old dumb ritual that makes you feel like a pilot in a plane looking for a wing that isn't on fire. The mirror showed me the lot behind. The green dinosaur. The bug-bitten lamps that made everything look like a crime happened there once and never left. And under the furthest light, at the edge of the gravel, just within the circle where the bugs thrashed and pinged the metal shade, a white shape. Parka. Hood up. Back turned. Facing the corn stubble at the far fence as if it was an ocean she could step into. The air in the cab didn't move, but the fur trim around that hood stirred just a little, like wind had found her and decided to leave me alone. There are moments where the right thing and the brave thing are the same thing, and you don't know which one you're chasing until you've already put your hand on the door handle. The metal was so cold it felt wet. I looked left at the side window before I opened anything. Habit again. No one there. I looked back at the mirror, because sometimes you need to look twice to make sure your eyes agreed with each other. The light at the edge of the lot buzzed. Bugs drew runes only they could understand. The rectangle of brightness lay empty, like it had always been empty. I stayed like that longer than you should. One hand on the door, one hand on the wheel, waiting for the version of the night that had the woman in it to come back. The highway west of Oakley felt older when I climbed back on it, like I'd dropped down a gear into someone else's route. I kept the speed honest, kept my lane like I learned it yesterday, and checked the mirrors more than any instructor would recommend. Somewhere near Grinnell, the heater threw a thin breath that wasn't warm anymore. That's the only way I can describe it. Not cold, not warm, just the absence of one and the memory of the other. The sleeper curtain breathed once, very slight, like the kind of draft you get when you open a bottle. I told myself I'd left the vent cracked. I told myself a lot of things. I don't have a dog. I don't carry passengers. That night I heard something soft shift on the mattress behind that little curtain, the kind of sound fabric makes when it forgets it's empty. I put my hand on the edge of the curtain and said the dumbest thing, the thing you say when you're alone and you don't want to be anymore. Hello? The cab held its breath with me. I pulled the curtain back an inch, enough to prove I'd done it, enough to feel stupid for doing it. The mattress lay as flat as a sentence. The little mesh pocket with the paperback and the flashlight hung where I left it. My knees suddenly remembered they were joints and not hinges. I let the curtain fall. The vinyl mat by my boots, the one that catches all the salt and gravel you carry on your soles, showed a crescent where moisture had darkened it. Not a full footprint, not a trail, just a half moon of wet like someone had set the edge of their heel there and thought better of the rest. It could have been melt from my jacket hem. It could have been any number of harmless things. It looked exactly like what it was, and I memorized it anyway to keep myself from looking at it again. By Lyman, the night had thinned into that pre-dawn gray where your eyes lie to you less. There's a scale house out there that loves to pull you just to hear itself beep. I pulled in because I wanted another human to tell me about tire tread and axle weight and anything that didn't involve the inside of my truck. The officer on duty had the posture of a man who'd learned how to nap standing up. Late 50s maybe, wind-burned in the way that never leaves you once it sets in. He took the papers, stamped what needed stamping, then looked over my shoulder at the cab like he was counting ghosts. "You all right, driver?" he said, and I nodded too fast, which is how you tell on yourself. I told him I'd seen someone on the shoulder back around 77, white coat, twice, no vehicle. He didn't give me the "maybe it was a deer" speech. He didn't give me the "y'all been driving too long" speech either. He did a thing with his mouth like he'd tasted something bad in the air and said, "Snow squall 5 winters back. Car died on the shoulder. Folks said she called her husband, told him she could see the mile marker plane. A rig came through blind, couldn't slow in time. hit her, and went on. Not necessarily by choice. Those squalls, they swallow the whole world. We never got the plate. Some say she pops up in bad weather, looking to stop what couldn't be stopped. He said it like a man repeating something because it's easier than carrying the silence. He handed me back my papers. If you see her again, don't stop on the shoulder. Call us. We can close lanes. You can't. Not. And live to tell it. I told myself the thing everyone tells themselves right after they survive the version of a story they used to laugh at, that it wouldn't follow me home, that it belonged to a certain mile marker and a certain temperature and a certain hour of night, and the rest of my hours were mine. Denver took me in like it always does. Flat light, warehouse bay doors yawning, a receiving clerk who decided coffee beat eye contact. I slept on the company lot in daylight because I didn't trust the walls of any motel not to breathe the way that curtain had. When I woke up, my phone had a missed call from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail, just the little badge that says somebody wanted to talk and changed their mind. 2 weeks later, I ran a daytime backhaul on the same stretch because money is either stupid or honest, depending on how much you need it. The sky was blue so bright it looked imported. The shoulder snow had collapsed into dirty sculptures. I told myself there was nothing to see, and then I saw it. Fresh flowers, zip-tied to the post just beyond the green 77. White lilies doing their best in air too cold for them. Someone had threaded a little child's mitten onto the tie, the cheap acrylic kind you buy in a bin by a checkout line. A card had slipped down into the ditch and was caught in the bent grass, but I didn't stop. Not even then, not even when the lane was empty for a mile, either side. I turned down the radio because the music made it worse somehow, and that's when the CB switched off because I'd promised myself that. Stuttered. It's hard to describe the sound a speaker makes when it's not supposed to have power. A dry, papery cough. The light didn't come on. Nothing lit. But out of that dead box, I heard my handle. Not loud, not like a shout, more like a breath across glass. Hollow. My name sounded wrong and right at the same time, like someone reading it off a list for the first time. I put my hand on the knob because that's what you do to convince yourself you're in charge of what you're hearing. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was just there. Since that night, I've developed a superstition about mirrors. I don't use the center one after dark. I angle it down at the cup holders, like that's the most important view in the cab. My side glass is clean enough to shave in, but I don't linger. I don't drive past Oakley without topping off, even if I don't need to. I've learned that sometimes you build your rituals after the thing happens, not before, and you pretend they were there the whole time. Drivers swap talk about that mile these days without calling it that mile. Watch your shoulders around 77, someone will say on 19, and the rest of us will hum acknowledgement without specifics. A week ago, crossing out of Denver into the dark, I saw a white parka in the corner of my mirror. Just the edge of it, as if whoever wore it was not in this world enough to be in the hole of my glass. I blinked. Just once, the way you do when a snowflake hits your eyelashes, and it was gone. Maybe it was reflection from a road sign. Maybe it was nothing. I keep the curtain clipped now so it can't breathe unless I tell it to. People say the road takes a toll, and they mean the easy stuff. Knees, neck, an ache between your shoulders from holding a wheel steady through crosswinds that hate your trailer. That toll is payable in aspirin and a day off. The other toll is faith. You either pay it up front and admit there are things you'll pass that won't pass you, or you pay it after, when you're counting the number of steps to the sleeper in the dim, as if numbers could make the distance real. If I see her again, I'll do what the officer said. I'll call it in. I'll keep the wheels moving. I'll trust that there's a version of the night where a voice saying my name is nothing but static. And if I don't believe that version, I'll drive anyway, because that's what you do when the highway goes on and asks for nothing from you except the miles you were going to give it. I'm Daniel Redline Harper, 41, out of Ogden, 14 years on a logbook that reads more like a cardiogram than a calendar. I don't tell ghost stories, I file reports. The difference is paperweight and a signature. Load that night was medical refrigerators, empty boxes with expensive wiring and louder lawyers. 3,600 pounds in a dry van that looked heavier than it rode. I-84 East, hook the 90, then lay I-80 across southern Wyoming until Cheyenne coughed up a dawn. Straight shot, clean air, a little pressure on the delivery window because somebody forgot a doc appointment and the hospital wanted their cold boxes before shift change. Shipper delay put me behind. Half an hour waiting on a pallet jack that had only two opinions, neutral and squeal. I rolled anyway because you roll. Weather out of Sinclair was textbook February. Stars like nails. Wind saving its breath for later. No chain law flashing. 3 other trucks in sight. I knew where the portables sat. I knew which scales were likely closed. I count mile markers the way other folks count sheep. Past the refinery glow, I picked up a white SUV with an amber bar. It slid out of the dark like it had been painted there, and someone finally turned on the light. It eased in front of me, square as a plumb bob, and showed me a flip-down placard in the rear window. Convoy, stay back 300 feet. Amber bar ticking steady, a big magnetic crest on the door that looked enough like WYDOT that my foot took instructions without asking my head. We defer to vests and emblems out here. You follow the hand in the glove because the glove is attached to a paycheck you don't want to fight. I gave it space. 300 feet, then 4. The SUV held 62 like it had cruise set to my pulse. No lane drift, no brake checks. Just that steady amber knocking on my windshield, telling the bugs where to die. I keyed up on 19 because that's the ritual. Convoy ahead of me near 236, you with DOT or contractor. Clean, polite, the way you talk when you're testing the temperature of the water. My own voice came back 5 seconds late, not a copy. An echo that knew my pacing, my little breath break between dot and contractor. Convoy ahead of me, near 236, you with DOT or contractor. Then a soft layer under it, like someone talking through a scarf. Copy, red line, maintain. I didn't say red line on the radio. I don't say my handle unless I know who's listening. Habit. It felt like seeing your own latched front door from the street. Safe, but wrong. I told myself there was a bleed from a base station, a guy with a replay box, some bored wrecker with a sense of humor. I told myself a lot of things and kept 350 feet. The SUV led me past 2 temporary orange signs leaned on their little kick legs in the breakdown lane. Left shoulder closed, mile 239. Wyoming uses highway Gothic in a way that makes typography nerds nod. These plates were the wrong font. The number 9 had a tail on it like it was trying to leave the page. I noticed because I noticed that stuff. If you drive nights this long, you collect stupid details as a way to keep your sanity all in one bowl. There was also no shoulder work on my Y. bulletin. I keep the PDF on my phone even though it's never where you need it when you need it. I told myself pop-up maintenance happens. I told myself not every contractor gets the memos. Cone taper started about a mile later, nice and textbook, 40-foot spacing, then 20, then 10, reflective bands popping in my low beams like teeth. I bled to 55 and bumped the 4 ways. 2 cones winked as the light hit them, and when the light left, they didn't exist. Not knocked over, not moved, absent. Cab filled with the sweet bite of hot antifreeze, that sticky green note you only smell when something's about to steam your ankles. I checked coolant temperature, rock solid at 189. No idiot light, no wet spray on the windshield. Heater was already at mid-dash because Wyoming after midnight is Wyoming after midnight. The smell hung there anyway, polite as a skunk in a tie. I tried to see a driver in the SUV. The rear glass was tinted past legal, and then some. All I got was my own high beams smearing themselves into 2 big coins and a faint suggestion of headrests. The placard flipped up and down on its hinges like a librarian shushing me. Convoy, stay back 300 feet, over and over, even though I was. Mile 239 slid up in that way green numbers do. The SUV clicked its amber faster, tapped the brake lights twice without decelerating, then drifted right into a shoulder that the surveyors forgot to draw. The pavement edge went sharp into sage. No rumble strip, no buffer. It just made room. My steers went light like a crosswind took a liberty. There wasn't any wind. The wheel ticked to the right in my hands and I ticked it back. The SUV rode the white line that wasn't there. Then the brake lights went out and stayed out, while the amber bar kept flashing. No reflection off a driver's mirror. No ghost of movement behind the glass. GPS chirped in its patient lady voice. Exit right to frontage 239B. The screen showed me a gray line paralleling the interstate over a creek that freezes hard in February. The gray line wasn't on any map I own. There is no 239B. You could put me in front of the DOT board in a suit I hate, and I'd swear on whatever they love. There is no 239B. CB hissed and gave me my own voice again. Lazy, sleepy. Ease it down, down and down. The 3 downs lined up with the 3 tiny taps my boot made on the brake pedal because I couldn't stop myself from testing the pedal like it was a smoke detector. I hit the dash cam marker button. Habit again, I keep a thumb on the truth where I can. It put a little blue tick on the memory card. Later, in a diner with coffee that believed in itself, I would play the clip back 5 times. It would show straight, dark highway, no lead vehicle, no placard, no amber bar. Just a weird pulse of amber light reflected off the green milepost, like there was a party happening behind me instead of in front. At the time, I saw taillights, red bars that floated a hair too high and a hair too wide, like they were stuck to the idea of a car, not the car itself. Antifreeze sat in my sinuses and made my tongue go metal. Exit right, the GPS said, calm like a nurse lying to a child. Maintain, the CB said, calm like a nurse holding a pillow. I'm not proud of what I did next. Pride is for day cabs and Instagram. I took both hands high on the wheel and muscled left 2 inches. No signal. No apology. The SUV drifted farther into the not shoulder to make room for a thing that didn't exist because I wasn't there yet. When my bumper drew even with its bumper, the SUV wasn't there. It didn't fall behind. It didn't surge ahead. The space just stopped pretending. The road snapped normal the way a radio finds a station. Lane markings looked like paint again instead of chalk. Cones didn't exist because they never had. Milepost 240 peered up like a kid measuring himself on a door frame. My coolant still sat at 189. My heart sat wherever it goes when it has to earn its keep. I ran until the next westbound scale house because I wanted fluorescent lighting and a human being behind glass to tell me what time it was. I pulled off, put my paperwork in my teeth like a rookie, and asked for a courtesy axle weight because that's a thing you can ask for when you need a printer to be a priest. The printer spit a receipt with a timestamp 47 minutes behind my phone. My phone had the right time because it had argued with a cell tower about it. The scale lady pointed at a wall clock with a pen and said they were synced to state time, not to whatever your apps do. She smiled when she said it. The smile curled a little when she looked at my face. On the walk back to the truck, I glanced the odometer out of habit. 9 miles more than my trip log deserved. I don't miss 9 miles. I log fuel with a pencil sharp enough to perform surgery. My fuel level agreed with my log. My dash said otherwise, like a kid with chocolate on his mouth saying he didn't touch the cake. In the morning, with the load off and the hospital guy happy to have boxes that plug in, I called Y. Not the big number, the little one you get when you've been put on hold enough times to earn it. I asked for night escorts and temporary shoulder closures at 2:39. The engineer on the other end sounded like coffee and gravel. No closures scheduled last night. No convoys authorized. We don't run lead vehicles on 80 unless we're pushing snow, and you'd know if we were pushing snow. Plates? I asked, even though I hadn't actually read a plate. That's another habit. You ask for the thing that proves you wrong. If you got a plate, send it. We'll run it, he said. But we don't have SUVs with the crest on the door. We do vinyl on the quarter panel. Budget thing. Font thing, I thought, and kept it in my pocket. A trooper from Rawlins phoned me an hour later because my call had bounced to him like a weird ball. He asked me to send my dash cam clip. I did. He emailed back a satellite still of mile 239 scraped from yesterday afternoon. Undisturbed snowpack on the Sage. No tire ribbon. No frontage road. No 239B except in whatever map lives in the unhelpful parts of electronics. You okay? He asked at the end, and I heard what he meant. Not blood and bones, the other kind. I filed my report, I said. We both let the call die politely. I avoided 239 for a year. You can add 15 minutes to a run if it gives your bones a break. Dispatch thinks in lines. Your brain thinks in circles. The second winter after, I had to pass. You can only route around a number for so long before the number learns your name. Same hour, same stars, same quiet, no SUV, no cones, no false signs with the wrong font and the 9 trying to escape. I told myself it was done. I told myself the road had coughed up a hairball and now the carpet was clean. Half a mile past the marker, with the heater set to feet and the defrost pretending to help, the cab filled with the smell of hot antifreeze. Coolant gauge sat at 189 like a dog who's learned the trick but doesn't know why. I cracked the window and got February for my trouble. I turned the heater off and the smell stayed, polite as before. I didn't key the CB. I didn't touch the dash cam button. I didn't give the GPS a chance to find a road it could swear was there. This is where you expect me to get clever, to say I figured it out, that the SUV belonged to a contractor that folded after some scandal, that the smell came from a hairline crack in a hose that never showed up again. That the wrong font meant a swap with an out-of-state sign kit, and the echo on 19 was a 1970s repeater someone forgot on a tower. I like those endings. They make the paper stack neat. 2 months later, at a truck stop where the coffee believes in itself and the eggs don't, a kid in a vest asked if I'd ever seen the 239 convoy. He said it like you'd ask if I'd seen the Northern Lights. A thing you hope for if you're young and haven't learned to avoid wishes. Looks like Wydot, he said, stirring creamer into something that started as coffee and ended as soup. Leads you toward a frontage road that ain't there. My uncle says he smelled coolant so strong it made his eyes water. He pulled into the sage, and there were tracks. Somebody's, not his. The trooper told him the snow was clean the next morning like someone ironed it. I told him to keep 350 feet from anything that tells him to keep 300 feet. Dry humor is a bad bandage. It sticks to the scab. I've still got the scale receipt with the wrong time. I keep it tucked in the logbook like a pressed leaf. The 9 stray miles live on the page where I wrote them because that's the deal. If you write it, it happened enough to argue about. Once in a while I pull up the dashcam clip and listen to the silence. You can hear my engine hum and the tire whump that lines make every 60 feet. You can see the green mileposts taking turns. If you stare long enough, you might convince yourself there's an amber blink in the corner. Light has a way of putting fingerprints where it wasn't invited. If you want a moral, I don't have one. I'm not a preacher. I'm a guy who knows the difference between a state crest and a contractor's magnet by the way the eagle's eye sits. I'm a guy who keeps the Wydot bulletin on his phone and argues with it in the cab like it can hear. I'm a guy who smelled antifreeze without a leak and said maintain without touching the mic. Mile 239 has no shoulder. It has whatever you bring to it. A little schedule pressure, a little pride, a little tired voice that sounds like your own, telling you down, down, down. I still run I-80. You can't hold a grudge against asphalt. It doesn't care. I pass 239 like a man who remembers a name he doesn't say out loud. Sometimes the air is just air. Sometimes it's green and sweet. When it is, I count to 3. I don't know why. I don't know what the number does besides make my hands stay still. I'm Daniel Harper. I don't tell ghost stories. I file reports. My name's Russ, but everyone on the road calls me Gear Jack. 38 years old, born and baked in Texas. I've been hauling for 15 years now, long enough to know the difference between a real voice on the radio and the kind that sticks around long after it shouldn't. I was running an overnight haul out of El Paso that week. Auto parts headed for a distribution yard in Shreveport. Regular route, clean road. It's mostly just a line of concrete and dotted white lights after midnight. The kind of drive where you settle into the rhythm. Engine hum, CB chatter, the occasional stretch of static that sounds like wind whispering through an empty tin can. If you've ever driven long haul, you've probably heard about CB ghosts. It's an old joke among drivers. Dead channels that light up with phantom chatter. Voices from rigs that ran the interstate decades ago. Most of the time, it's just bleed from another frequency or a rebroadcast loop from someone's jerry-rigged antenna. That's what we tell ourselves. Because it's easier than believing the road keeps its own echo. This night, though, it didn't sound like bleed. I was east of Fort Stockton, flat desert, cold air hitting the windshield hard enough to sing. The radio crackled once, then locked on clear as day. Breaker 19, anybody still rolling eastbound? Normal call, clear modulation. But the voice had that twang you only hear in old trucker training tapes. Slow, friendly, drawl thick as diesel oil. I grabbed my mic. Copy, eastbound. You got Gear Jack, rolling 80 east of Stockton. What's your 20? Static. Then a quick squeal like a cassette hitting the end of a reel. Then silence. I sat there thinking it was some bored rookie messing with me, maybe some hobbyist running a big linear amp out of Midland, pushing range he shouldn't. Either way, it didn't feel like any modern rig I'd ever heard. Half an hour passed, the highway stretched like a lazy belt. Then that same voice came back. Same pitch, same breath. Appreciate it, driver. Blew a tire on 312, got smoke all over the hood. The words crawled under my ribs. Mile 312. I was sitting near 270 at the time. Say again? I said into the mic. You said 312. You in trouble, driver? The channel hissed. Then the faintest trace of old country music, twangy steel guitar leaking through static. I recognized the song, Convoy. Of course it was. Then silence again. My skin prickled. You get used to weird CB noise on the interstates, phantom keys, feedback loops, jokers playing recordings. But this felt different. The way the air went flat in the cab, the way the static seemed to sync with my pulse. I turned the volume down and left it that way. By the time I hit mile marker 312, it was 2:27 in the morning, nothing but blacktop and brush. That's when the smell hit. Burnt rubber. Sharp. Heavy. Like a tire just blew half a mile ahead. I eased off the throttle. No lights, no hazards. Just the smell and a streak across both lanes. Long, dark drag marks. Looked fresh. I flipped on my hazards and coasted past slow. There was a broken CB antenna on the shoulder, one of those chrome whips with a red tip, half snapped. Lying next to it was a mud flap, faded white letters still visible if you squinted. Jessup hauling. I'd never heard of them, so I made a note. I look things up when the road gets long, keeps the brain from drifting into the ditches. When I hit the next stoplight in Ozona, I pulled out my phone and ran it through a quick search. Jessup Hauling, LLC. Dissolved, 1982. I remember just staring at the screen for a second, thumb hovering over the refresh button like maybe the internet would fix it if I gave it another try. Static clicked alive again. I hadn't touched the CB. Breaker 19, the voice said. Could use a hand with this tire, driver. I froze. Say your handle, I said finally. You on 312 right now? The reply came fast, too fast, like it already knew what I'd say. Appreciate it, driver. But the voice that said it wasn't the man from before. It was mine, my own tone, my same tired rasp. I killed the radio, didn't even bother turning it back on, drove with both hands clamped on the wheel until the sky started showing a bit of dawn. My palms left sweat prints on the vinyl. A couple hours later, I picked up another rig in my mirror, flatbed Pete, clean paint, running lights steady. He called me up on 19, said his handle was Missouri Dan. Sounded about 50, been at it longer than me. Dead stretch up ahead, he said. CB goes weird through here sometimes. Old recordings, echoes, that kind of thing. I tried to keep it light. Like ghosts on the radio? He laughed, but it wasn't a full laugh. Something like that. Some boys pulled over back in the day, thought they heard a mayday, never saw him again. Might be stories, might not, but I don't answer voices past Pecos anymore. I didn't tell him what I'd heard, didn't tell him about Jessup. I just kept my eyes on the white lines and let him talk until the sun came up and the miles blurred. By the time we hit San Angelo, Dan peeled off. I rolled solo again, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was pacing me. Checked the mirrors, 3 sets of headlights trailing, all even, all steady. Convoy distance like old-timers used to run in the 70s. Perfect formation. I radioed Dan again just to check. Hey, you see those rigs behind me, about 400 yards back? Negative, he said. Road's clear. I stared again. They were still there. White, yellow, and blue headlights. Same spacing, same hum in the road. Then we passed under an overpass, and they were gone. Not faded, not dropped back. Gone. When I parked that night at a truck stop outside Ozona, I figured I'd gone a little crazy from the hours. I had one of those cheap dash cams that records CB audio through the mic loop, so I played it back out of curiosity. During the section where the Jessup voice came through, my own voice answered first. 10-4, pulling off 312 to help a driver. I sat there with the phone in my hand until the battery died. The timestamp on the video said June 1981. The hair on my neck lifted so slow I could feel every follicle stand up one by one. The next day, I started asking around. Old truckers at the stop in Pecos, dispatchers with too much coffee and too many stories. A guy named Cal, who'd been running rigs since the Carter years, nodded when I said, 312. You talking about the Jessup wreck, he said. Dust storm took half a dozen trucks that night. One of them caught fire. Driver called for help, Channel 19. Whole region heard him. They found the trailers next day, but not the cab. Battery kept that radio alive for almost a week before the state troopers cut it out. I asked him if the CB ever stopped transmitting. He just shrugged. Some folks say you can still catch him once in a while, usually when it's cold and clear. You'll know by the smell. That night I drove back out of Shreveport with an empty trailer. No cargo, just wind. No sound in the cab but the hum of the tires and the occasional creak of old suspension. Just before midnight, I passed the 312 marker again. I didn't look at the shoulder, didn't slow down, didn't want to know if the mud flap was still there. Halfway through the mile, static built in the speakers, slow, thick, like fog made of sound. Then a voice slid through it, dry and familiar. "Appreciate it, driver." I didn't touch the dial. I didn't answer. The next morning, I pulled into a truck wash outside Junction. When I stepped out of the cab, the smell hit me again, faint but sharp. Burnt rubber, like something still cooling down. 2 months later, I sold that rig. Didn't tell the buyer why. I figured it'd stay with the truck, whatever it was. But every now and then, even with a different unit, even on a clean route, my phone picks up a stray CB ping through the Bluetooth. It'll light up with my old handle, Gear Jack, in a voice that sounds like mine saying, "Appreciate it, driver." I always turn the radio off before it finishes. Some folks think the road forgets everything except the weight on your axle, but I think it remembers what gets left behind. And sometimes when the air goes still around mile 312, it plays back the last words it heard, just to see who's still listening.